When we think of India, it's easy to picture the single monolithic nation. But the reality is, well, it's a lot more complicated. That unity isn't just a given. It's the result of a constant, really delicate balancing act. Today, we're going to look at the deep internal fault lines that are testing that balance every single day. And it really all kicks off with one big question.
I mean, seriously, how do you do it? We're talking about a nation of 1.4 billion people, with a staggering number of languages, ethnicities, and religions. Just trying to manage all the different hopes, dreams, and grievances that come with that diversity, it's one of the biggest challenges any country on Earth faces. So what happens when that pressure starts to build? Well, our first stop is way up in the Himalayas, in the stunning region of Ladakh. Ever since it became a Union territory back in 2019, this huge movement has been growing. But here's the interesting part. They're not asking for separation. They're fighting for autonomy and for the protection of their very unique identity.
Okay, look at this number. Over 95%. Let that sink in for a second. What on earth could this number represent? Because believe me, it is the absolute key to understanding the powerful movement that's shaking Ladakh right now. That number, that's the tribal population of Ladakh, over 95%. And this right here is the heart of the issue. It's why the people there are demanding special protection under India's constitution. They have a deep-seated fear that their unique culture, their land, their entire way of life is at risk of just being washed away. So all of this has led to one single central demand, getting included in what's called the Sixth Schedule. Now, this isn't just some random piece of bureaucratic paper. It's a really powerful tool baked right into the Indian Constitution, and it's designed specifically to give tribal areas the power of self-governance, letting them protect their own land and their own culture from outside influence. So the fears that are driving these huge protests, they run deep. Since 2019, people in Ladakh feel like they've completely lost their political voice. They don't have their own elected state representatives anymore. There's this gnawing anxiety that new laws could literally change who they are demographically, and that unchecked industry could destroy their incredibly fragile ecosystem. But really, it all just boils down to this one fundamental fear of losing what makes them, them. And you know what makes this movement so powerful? It's unity. The two main districts, Leh, which is mostly Buddhist, and Kargil, which is mostly Shia Muslim, have had their fair share of disagreements over the years. But on this issue, they are standing shoulder to shoulder, completely united. And that just goes to show you how widespread and how deeply felt these demands are across the entire region.
But these demands for autonomy, they're just one type of pressure. The Indian state is also dealing with challenges that are way more extreme. We're talking about several violent, armed movements that are trying to fundamentally challenge the authority of the state itself. Everything from campaigns for secession to full-blown ideological insurgencies.
And these threats are incredibly different from one another. In Punjab, for instance, you have the push for a separate state of Khalistan. Now, it's been largely suppressed inside India, but the idea is still very much alive in parts of the diaspora. Then you jump way over to the east, to Manipur, which is just gripped by a brutal ethnic conflict. It's a massive internal security crisis that has torn society apart. And then, running through the heart of central India, you have the long-running Maoist insurgency in the Red Corridor, which, while smaller than it used to be, is still a major challenge to the state. But not all these fault lines are about identity or violence. One of the most significant cracks forming in India today is actually a growing structural divide between the northern and the southern states. It's a friction point that's deeply political and deeply economic. It's almost like India's north and south are on two totally different paths. Generally speaking, the southern states are more developed economically, and they've been much more successful at controlling population growth. At the same time, the northern states, which have larger populations to begin with, are growing even faster. And this simple difference is creating some really profound political tension. The flashpoint for all this tension comes down to one kind of technical-sounding word, delimitation. All it means is redrawing the boundaries of parliamentary constituencies based on the latest population numbers. And because the North's population has exploded, the southern states are terrified that this process, which is due sometime after 2026, is going to massively reduce their political power and their voice in the national government. And that political fear is being fueled by a real sense of economic injustice. Southern states contribute a way bigger slice of the national tax pie, but they argue they get way less back from the central government. So you can see why they're frustrated, right? It creates this powerful feeling that they're basically bankrolling the northern states. And now, on top of that, they might lose their political power too. All right, so we've jumped around a bit, haven't we? From Ladakh's quest for autonomy to insurgencies in Manipur to this big political and economic divide between the north and south. On the surface, they all seem like completely unrelated issues. But what if they're not? If we look a little closer, we can actually start to see some common threads connecting them all. When you really start to peel back the layers, you see the same kind of discontent popping up again and again. Doesn't matter if it's Ladakh's autonomy, the South's money complaints, or the insurgencies. Almost all of them involve a really strange relationship with the central government, deep economic inequalities, and historical grievances that go back decades. And a lot of the time, like we saw in Ladakh in the Northeast, these tensions are dialed up to 11 because they're happening in strategically sensitive border regions. So ultimately, it all comes down to this one core challenge for India. How on earth does the state balance its totally legitimate national security concerns with the equally legitimate democratic and regional hopes of its incredibly diverse people? It is the tightrope that India has been walking for more than 75 years. And that leaves us with a final question to chew on. Are all these internal fractures and pressures a sign of weakness? A sign that the system is failing? Or are they just the messy, inevitable, and ongoing test of what it actually means to be the world's largest, and you could argue most complex, federal democracy?